Sangye Churdak Soki Chognam La Gyakcho Bardu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunyin Gi Pesonam Ki Rula Penchu Sangye Drupar Shu Sangye Churdak Soki Chognam La Gyakcho Bardu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunyin Gi Pesonam Ki Drula Penchu Sangye Drupar Shok Sangye Churdak Soki Chognam La Changcho Bardu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Chenyin Gi Peso Nam Ki Drula Penchu Sangye Drupar Shok. Oh, Nick, you're muted.
Sorry. So if we sit quietly, you can feel the energy of those prayers sort of percolating through your mind. So now just spend 2 or 3 minutes focusing on your breath to sharpen, clarify your mind, get a little more centered. So just focus on your breath going out and coming in without allowing yourself to be distracted by anything whatsoever. So think the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, first I have to reach enlightenment myself. That depends on my completing the path to enlightenment. That depends on studying and meditating on the teachings that lead all sentient beings along the path to enlightenment, including myself. Therefore, I'm going to study this teaching of Padampa Sangye, the 100 verses. I'm studying this teaching in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Really generate a strong bodhicitta motivation. Okay, thank you. So everybody do their homework. Okay, I'm not going to, well, okay, I won't pick on anybody to recite. Remember, we had to memorize the 8 freedoms, the 10 richnesses, the 8 worldly dharmas, and the 3 higher trainings. So not too onerous, and we have to know much more than that. Anyway, that was some of the things we touched on last week. So the intention is to get beyond verse 1, but after all, there are 100. But still, this perfect human rebirth is really an amazing teaching. And also, I mentioned Lama Zopa Rinpoche's book on the perfect human rebirth. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but it used to be for sale, but now it's free. So there are copies, or there should be copies, at Kurukulla Center, which if you don't have one already, you can pick one up for free, or get one from the lamyeshi.com website. So it's important teaching for a couple of reasons. One is we kind of take our life for granted. We don't see it in the perspective of beginningless and endless past and future lives. And we don't really think how we got here. But, as it says in the first verse, if you spend the present meaninglessly and leave with empty hands, people of Tingri, a human life in future will be very hard to find. So he's just saying a human life. He's not even saying a perfect human rebirth. He's just saying a human rebirth. And that's true too. I mean, you can see if we just look around, I mean, we know that the Buddhist worldview is that there are 6 different realms of existence that we could be born in, the 3 lower realms, 3 upper realms, the hell realms, the animal hungry ghost realm, the animal realm, the 3 lower realms, and then the human realm, the asura realm, and the sura realm, those 2 god realms, and the human realm in the 3 upper realms. So we can't see the sentient beings in the hell or hungry ghost realms or in the god realms with our present level of perception, which doesn't mean they don't exist. It means that our view is limited. But we can see the animal realm, which includes, dogs and cats and farm animals and all the larger animals in Africa and so on, and insects and birds and fish and reptiles. I mean, there are so many different kinds of animals, and within each kind there are so many different species. You know, I heard just the other day that trying to preserve some land somewhere, and there are native trees that are growing on this land, but they're not native to that part of the country. So they're trying to get rid of those. And those non-native trees harbour 2 species of insect. But if the right trees for that area are planted instead, each tree can harbour 300 species of insects. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable how many insects. In the summer, if you look at the street lights, there's just so many tiny flies or other insects, moths and so on, gathering around the light. It's just... So when you compare the number of insects and fish and animals and everything to the number of humans, we think humans are so many, 8 billion on the earth. And, you know, because the humans are so destructive, it's far too many. It's true. But I know there's a story that Lama was giving a teaching on the Lam Rim in Tibet, and he was saying how, just what I'm saying, you know, how few humans there are compared to animals and insects. And then one monk turned to his neighbor and said, he's only saying that because he hasn't been to China, because, you know, so many people in China. But even all the people in China, I think India maybe have more now, is nothing compared to the number of insects just in your garden, you know. So, and why is that? It's because these lives are the result of a cause, and it's so easy to create the cause, to be reborn as an animal or insect, you know. It's so hard to create the cause, to be reborn human, let alone have a human rebirth with 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So if we really understood the implications of this teaching, that every time we thought I've received a perfect human rebirth, and you know, 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, just that thought should bring incredible joy into our mind. It's so rare, it's so precious. You know, we can do so much with it. You know, we can, you know, from temporal benefits, we can use this. We can use this perfect human rebirth to create the cause of rebirth in the upper realms, to avoid rebirth in the lower realms. You know, by understanding karma, by creating positive actions and avoiding purifying negative actions. We can even create the cause of another perfect human rebirth, so that we can continue our practice of Dharma. And, you know, that is what we pray for. And that's what we prayed for in previous lives. And that's what we, you know, if we understand that the cause of a perfect human rebirth, of a life like this one, which of course has its problems because we're still in samsara, but if we understand, you know, that we have to practice morality and charity, I talked about that last time, and how the cause of rebirth in any of the upper realms is the practice of morality, and the practice of generosity or charity just ensures that we have resources in that life, in the upper realms. That, you know, these 18 attributes of perfect human rebirth, each one has its own cause. So we have to practice the causes to bring about those broadly, morality, charity, and the practice of the six perfections, charity, morality, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. So if we practice those, as well as the general practice of morality and generosity, then we're creating the course for perfect human rebirth. And also in the teachings, I think in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, it says, Lama Tsongkhapa says, that this rebirth is received only once. So literally, that's not correct. Excuse me, Lama Tsongkhapa. But literally, it's not correct, because if we hadn't received previous perfect human rebirths, we wouldn't have this one, because that's what it really takes to practice Dharma to the full, to receive such a rare and precious rebirth that has all these possibilities. The possibility is to bring, and if we understand karma, we can create the course to be, beautiful in this life. So obviously I need to work on that. We can create the course to be wealthy. We can create the course to have any of the desirable things that we want in this life, if we understand karma and how to create the cause of those things. That's what perfect human rebirth allows us. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, because those temporal benefits that we can create are greatly outweighed by the ultimate benefits. And there are sort of two ultimate benefits. We can create the cause to attain freedom, liberation from cyclic existence. So we've been in this cycling through these six realms since beginningless time. I mean, it's hard to conceive beginningless time, that we've been around. Our mind has been around since beginningless time. Who's saying I've been everywhere, man? Was it Johnny Cash? That's literally true. We've been everywhere in all the six realms, countless times in each one. Every form of life, all these insects that I was just talking about, we've had that life of each one, countless times, infinite number of times. It's beginningless. There's no beginning to the lives we've had in cyclic existence. All suffering. Reborn, dying, experiencing all the different sufferings that each of those lives brings along with it. It's incredible. And yet here we are, we can create the cause to escape from all that, to attain freedom from cyclic existence. Generally by practicing these three higher trainings: conduct, concentration, and wisdom. So the conduct, is the ethics of body, speech, and mind, and particularly, as I said before, taking precepts, keeping precepts that stop the result similar to the cause in habit. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, the worst of the four suffering results of negative karma, the tendency to do it again and again. So in this life, that's one ultimate benefit, but the real ultimate benefit is enlightenment, which the principal cause is bodhicitta, which is why we emphasize it so much, and why we try to practice compassion and develop it into great compassion, and then bodhicitta, the determination to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So in the early Lamrim courses, in the 70s, ones I went to in Kopan, which was most of them at that time, but he'd always start the teaching by quoting Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara, Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or a verse from that, or a verse from Kurukulla Lama Rinpoche's Precious Lamp in Praise of Bodhicitta. So it's published. Usually I wave these books around, but I forgot. I didn't know I was going to say it. So, but that's published by Wisdom, as vast as the heavens, deep as the sea. And so he would quote a verse from that or from Shantideva and then give a brief commentary as the bodhicitta motivation for the day's teachings, meditations, and other activities. So those verses that he would quote and his commentaries were published by the archive recently, a couple of years ago, in a little book called The Nectar of Bodhicitta, which is also at the center for free. Nectar of Bodhicitta. So Rinpoche always used to emphasize bodhicitta, not just then, but all the time, of course. And his life was bodhicitta in action. How every moment was spent out of concern for others and no concern for himself. If anyone read Venerable Rabina's obituary to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, quoting Venerable Roger, his assistant for over 30 years, where he talks about Rinpoche's life, was, you don't know how he did it. It was just amazing. So there was this Theravada monk, Prakantipalo. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He was an English guy who became a monk in Thailand, and his Venerable Kantipalo, and he established a centre near Sydney in Australia in the 70s. I think he established a Wat Buddha Dharma, and everybody knows Venerable Holly, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's second assistant, Roger's assistant. She grew up there in Wat Buddha Dharma, and her mother is now a nun also, Venerable Peldron. Anyway, so when Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe first went to Australia in 1974, and they gave a course in Queensland, this monk, Kantipalo, kind of came to check it out, see what was going on. And then he sat in some of Rinpoche's teachings, and then he went and complained to Lama Yeshe that this young monk, he talks about bodhicitta too much. So Lama loved that story. The irony is, though, that later on, Kantipalo disrobed and he became a student of Namkha Norbu, the Dzogchen master. And he has, or had I guess he passed away, but he has a centre in Conway, New Hampshire. And I lost touch with Kantipalo many years ago, but after I moved to Boston in '89, I was staying, first year or so, I stayed at Tim McNeil's house, and was working at Wisdom, and I got a call in the office, and it was Kantipalo calling from New Hampshire. And, asked me if I remembered him. Of course I remembered him. And he said, well, you won't believe what's happened, but I've gotten into Tibetan Buddhism. I've been studying with Namkha Norbu, and I'm coming through Boston. I need a place to stay. So he stayed with us for a night. And then he went back to Australia. And eventually he founded a centre in North Queensland called the Bodhicitta Centre. So beware if you criticise bodhicitta, it'll come back to bite you in the best possible way. Anyway, so what am I talking about? So so we can use this perfect human rebirth to study the teachings on bodhicitta. We can even start a centre called the Bodhicitta Centre if we want to, and we can develop our practice of bodhicitta and reach enlightenment. So these are the opportunities the perfect human rebirth gives us. So, people feel lonely and alienated and depressed and bored. But if we understand perfect human rebirth, it's antidote to all these kind of negative feelings. So, when we're feeling okay, we should study and meditate on these teachings, and and the way we meditate on the 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, we think, you start by in the 8 freedoms and think, since beginning of this time, I've been circling in samsara throughout the 6 realms, and most of that time is spent in the hell realms. So of all these beginningless lives, all these different possibilities, the insects flying around the lights and everything, far more times than we've born like that, we've been born in the hell realms. And if I were born in the hell realm, how unbearable the suffering would be. You think of the hot hells or the cold hells. In the hot hells, if we're sitting trying to meditate and someone takes a stick of burning incense, that tiny little red hot bit at the end, and starts poking you with it, saying, meditate, meditate, how impossible that would be. So imagine if the whole body is on fire and the whole environment is like red hot burning iron or boiling oil or whatever, different, there are 8 different kinds of hot hells. How impossible it will be to practice Dharma. So then we think, how fortunate I am this time not to have been born in the hell realms and to have the opportunity to practice Dharma. So we sort of feel the relief that we're not in that situation for this short time, we have the opportunity to practice Dharma. So this should begin to encourage us to really practice Dharma, especially bodhicitta, now that we have the chance. And then you think, well, so even though most of my previous lives I was born in the hell realms, when I wasn't, most of the times I was born as a hungry ghost. So we think of all the different sufferings of the hungry ghosts. I think there are 36 different types of hungry ghosts, something like that, with all their different particular kinds of sufferings, but particularly feelings of hunger and thirst. So most of us haven't experienced much in the way of hunger or thirst. Maybe if you've done the nyungne on the 2nd day where you don't eat a thing, or you don't ingest a drop of water, you may get an inkling like that. And even then it's quite hard to practice. I always remember Wendy's led quite a few nyungnes. I mean, not recently, but she led some at Kurukulla Centre. I remember her telling me one time. I mean, she's a much better practitioner than I am. Haven't done many nyungnes. She said on the 2nd day she had to crawl into the gompa because she was so out of it on the day after the fasting day. So, we put ourselves through that voluntarily. At least we can get a slight idea of what it must be like to be a hungry ghost and not have food or drink for hundreds of years. I'll drink to that. So how difficult it is to practice just after going a day without food or drink. So imagine how hard it would be to go for hundreds of years. Impossible to practice Dharma. I mean, you can't even hear Dharma, so. But just, it's think how fortunate I am not to have been born in that condition and have the freedom in this life to practice Dharma. So like that, we go through the 8 freedoms and then the 10 richnesses, and you think how fortunate I am. So by the end, it's like, wow, it's incredible, that to have received these 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So how precious and how important this life is. So how important it is not to waste it, not to make it meaningless. So, as I think I mentioned last time, that when it comes to the teaching within the perfect human rebirth part of the Lamrim, so there are the 3 divisions. There's recognizing the human rebirth, the 8 freedoms, 10 richnesses. Then how is this life meaningful? So it's meaning in the temporal way and the ultimate way, as I just mentioned. And then is it easy to get perfect human rebirth? So then we come to this comparison with the numbers of other lives and so on and so forth. And it's hard to get because the cause is difficult to create. So these are all topics we study and meditate on to gain an appreciation of perfect human rebirth. After my first Copan course, which was 1972, more than 50 years ago, it was kind of feel a bit sad how little I've done in 50 years. But anyway, I remember after the course, I wasn't completely convinced. And even halfway through, my friend and I, who attended the course together, we were still making plans to go to Goa for the winter. It was a November course. Those days, there were 2 courses a year in the spring. In 72, 73, and 74, there were 2 courses a year. And then when the Lamas started traveling the world more, then it just became the November course, the fall course. So the Lamas would travel most of the year and then come back to Copan for the November course. Amiyashi Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So by the end of the course, we had a group photo on top of the old hill at Copan. And I remember thanking Rinpoche for changing my life. I remember I said that. And now I don't remember exactly what it was, because after around that time, there was a Canadian nun, Anne McNeil, who was Rinpoche's assistant for the first few courses. And I said to her, I think I want to do Dharma, but I'm not sure how I'd support myself. I don't have that much money behind me. And so obviously I was thinking of doing it full time, but I wasn't quite sure how it would work financially. And she looked at me as if I was a bit simple and said, oh, if you give yourself to the Dharma will always look after you. I was like, oh, okay, I'll try. So here I am. I don't know how much I've given myself to the Dharma, but whatever little I've done, the Dharma certainly looked after me. So these are different times, but if you can give yourself fully to the Dharma and spend your life working for the center or going off and studying, doing a retreat, there's so many opportunities now that didn't exist 50 years ago to really do in-depth study. And we have all these retreat centers in the FPMT organization, the one in Vermont, just up the road. I mean, we have so many opportunities now to really give ourselves to the Dharma and work for the Dharma. And so, my experience is anyway that the Dharma will look after you. So after that first course, we had this. This was the book that we were given at the third course, called The Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun of the Mahayana Practice. So it had this rice paper cover, and it was done on a duplicating machine with the Stetner down in Kathmandu, and it was typed on different typewriters, so there's different typefaces. It was tied together with this kind of shoelace, or I think it's a shoelace. It's got these hard bits at the end. Talk about pulling yourself up with your bootstraps. It had this rice print of Avalokiteshvara in the inside of the front cover. So when we signed up for the third course, I think it was about $1 a day to stay there at Copan for food, accommodation, and tuition, including this book. Starts off how the mind is beginningless. So Tibetan texts would never start like that, but something for Westerners who don't believe in reincarnation or past and future lives, without which, without an understanding of which, nothing makes sense. I mean, there's no karma doesn't work without past and future lives. So, so it's how Rinpoche always used to introduce the formal teaching, how the mind is beginningless. So after the course, I had an interview with Rinpoche, and I said, this is a life-changing text, but grammatically and English-wise, it's a bit rough, So I said it could do with a bit of an edit, and he said, oh, well, that was just put together by the students from the second course. So the one I went to was the third course. First one was in the spring of 71. The Lama's first Western student, Zina Reshevsky, American woman of Russian descent, met them in India in 67 and became their first Western student. And you can read all about it in Big Love, the official biography of Lama Yeshe. So she found the Lamrim teachings extremely beneficial, and she became a nun in 68. And then she and the Lamas went to Nepal, and they founded Copan Monastery in about 69. And she asked Rinpoche many times to give teachings, meditation courses for Westerners. So after asking for 2 or 3 years, he went to Lama Yeshe and said, look, she keeps asking me to do this course, but he was, of course, very humble and didn't feel he had anything to share. But then Lama said to him, look, if it's beneficial, if you think it's beneficial, you should do it. So I guess he thought it was beneficial, so he did it. So the first one was in spring of 71, and the second one was in the spring of 72, and then the third one was in the fall of 72. That's what I went to. And so this was put together by the students from the second course. So Rinpoche said that. He said, oh, well, that was just put together by the students. I have my own ideas of how it should be. If you'd like to work with me on it, we can work on it for the fourth course, which was to be held in the spring of 73. So I said, sure, love to. So then for 6 weeks, Marie, my girlfriend, and I, we both decided. So at that course, there were about 50 people, the third Copan course. And most of them went off to Goa or different places. There were Vipassana courses. A lot of people were interested in Goenka courses. And some people went to Dharamsala to study at the Tibetan Library with Geshe Dage. There were two main places where Westerners in India and Nepal studied Tibetan Buddhism at that time. There was one, Copan was one, but between the courses, there wasn't much happening at Copan. So then the Tibetan Library in Dharamsala was started by His Holiness in 69 to give teachings to non-Tibetans. And they're mostly Westerners. So a lot of people from Copan went there, where the teachings were kind of year-round. But Marie and I decided to stay on, and so then we spent about 6 weeks with Rinpoche in his room going through this from cover to cover, and as he rewrote it. I mean, it's basically turned out the same, but editorially a little improved. And then he would work on it between courses with me. So there was an addition for the fourth course, and then there's another one for the fifth course, and then so it finished up being like this, which is not all that different. He changed the title a little bit: The Wish-Fulfilling Golden Son of the Mahayana Thought Training, Directing in the Shortcut Path to Enlightenment. Not the best English right there either, but that's what he wanted. It says the wish-fulfilling golden son. So we retained the picture of Avalokiteshvara, and wish-fulfilling golden son of the Mahayana Thought Training by Thupten Zopa. No Lama, no Rinpoche. He just wanted Thupten Zopa, his bare name, which is one doesn't really like to say. And then in brackets, the greatest simpleton amongst all the followers of Guru Shakyamuni. That was his commentary on his status. So he insisted on that too. The greatest simpleton amongst all the followers of Guru Shakyamuni. Anyway, so this has somehow become my personal edition. It's got all notes in it and everything. I think this is the one for the sixth course. So there are different editions of it. So in the summer of 73, I went to Laudo. I don't know, I wrote something for Laudo Chronicles about my first trip to Laudo. I don't know if you've seen that. But while I was up, so Laudo is everybody knows, right? Laudo Lama, where Lama Zopa Rinpoche came from. So they went up in 69, and Rinpoche built a monastery there for the local people, and the first Kopan monks were ordained up there. There were 5 of them, I think, in 71 or 71, I think. So when I got to Kopan for the 3rd course in 72, there were about 30 local monks, mainly Sherpa monks, at Kopan. So there are the Westerners, and there are these 30 or so Kopan monks. Now there are 400 monks and 400 nuns. So it's, I mean, a totally different world. I went there in May for the last couple of weeks of the 7 weeks following Rinpoche's parinirvana. So a bunch of us went to Laudo in the summer of 73, well, 6 of us. And while I was there, I had my notes from the 3rd and the 4th courses, and there was another student from Dharamsala who came to the 4th course, Brian Beresford, who learned Tibetan, and we published a book that he translated called Advice from a Spiritual Friend. That was Wisdom Publications' 2nd book. The first one was called Wisdom Energy, which was published in 1976. That was the Lama's teachings they gave in America in 1974, their first trip to the West. And the second one was commentaries on the 7 Atisha's Jewel Rosary, and the Geshe Chekawa's 7-point mind training, commentaries by Geshe Ngaondage and Geshe Rabden, a couple of the Geshis who were teaching in Dharamsala at the time. So Brian translated those, and we published that in 77. So Brian and his wife Marie came to the 4th course, and Brian took quite copious notes. So I was helping run the course, so I didn't take so many notes, took some. And the way Rinpoche taught then, he'd read a sentence or a paragraph or something, a bit from this book, and then he'd give a commentary on it. He'd explain it in greater depth. So this was like the root text, and then Rinpoche gave this commentary on it. So one of the things we did when we stayed at Kopan, my girlfriend was a nurse, so we set up a medical clinic at Kopan, and then I wrote to drug companies and friends in Australia to send medicines and different stuff like that. So, and a bunch of people came for the 4th course from Australia also. So they all brought medicines and stuff. So we set up a little clinic at Kopan, and then that summer when we went to Laudo, we took a trunk of medicines up, and we ran a little clinic out of the Laudo Gompa that had just been built. So one of the things I did was that, and the other thing I did was to edit Brian's notes and my notes from the 3rd and 4th courses, and that became Meditation Course Notes Volume 1, which we printed. We got our own duplicating machine at Kopan. We set up our own little printing press. So that was kind of the beginnings of Wisdom Publications. So those books there, they're Wisdom Publications books. There's also a bunch of the ones that are in sets, you know. See the Library of Tibetan Classics on the top shelf there. And a lot of those books are wisdom series books. There's books by Thupten Chodron and His Holiness, and Theravada books, the Nikayas from the Pali Canon by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and Geshe Zopa's Lamrim commentaries, Lamrim Chenmo commentaries, in different sets of books. So that really all sprang from wisdom, from the wishful fulfilling Golden Sun and these commentaries, Rinpoche's. So while I was doing that work at Laudo, and I had time because I got hepatitis. While I was up there, I got hepatitis because I smoked a joint with some Australian friends who came to the fourth course while they had hepatitis. So, and I thought they were post-infective, so I thought it was not a problem, but turned out my medical knowledge was about as bad as my Dharma knowledge, so which is pretty bad. So I got hepatitis as a result of smoking a joint with these guys down in Kathmandu before I went to Laudo and before they went back to Australia. So I had time. So so while I was doing that work, and I was editing Rinpoche's teachings on the 10 richnesses. So now I'm coming back to the thing. The second, third, and fourth, as you all know, remember, of course, the second is being born in the center of a religious country, or being in the center of a religious country. And a religious country is defined, as I mentioned last time, geographically, and as a place where the lineage of the ordination still exists. So I thought, well, you know, and the main benefit is that you can receive ordination. That's the main benefit of the second richness. So you can the lay precepts or the Mangha precepts. So I'd already taken the lay precepts, we all had, and we take refuge in the precepts after the courses, the lamas. Lama Yeshe would give refuge precepts. And they give us a Tibetan name. So my girlfriend Marie got the name Yeshe Kadro, so she still goes by that. And embarrassingly, I was given the name Thupten Zopa. So I was, so I never had the temerity to use that name. So, and anyway, the lamas always call me Dr. Nick, so that's kind of what sort of stuck. So then when we got ordained, which is jumping ahead, but anyway, I won't jump ahead. So so the benefit of the second richness was the lineage ordination. You can get ordained. So I thought, well, I have that. So then the third one was what Rinpoche called, having perfect organs, which means not so perfect on the outside, but inside sort of fairly perfect, I guess. No particular disqualifying things. And so the benefit of having one of the benefits of having perfect organs is that you can become ordained. That there are certain things that disqualify you from becoming ordained, and so I didn't have any of these disqualifications. So I thought, well, okay, I'm qualified to become ordained. So I'm thinking this as I'm editing these teachings. And then the fourth freedom is freedom from the 5 extreme negative actions, killing your father, killing your mother, killing an arhat, drawing blood from a Buddha, or creating a schism in the Sangha community. So these 5 extreme negative actions, or they're 5 immediate negativities. They're immediate because if you create any of those 5, then when you die, you're immediately reborn in the lower realms, most likely a hell realm, because they're such heavy negative karmas. So you get thrown into that unfortunate rebirth, and very hard to escape once you're down there. So I hadn't created any of those 5. I hadn't killed my father, mother, arhat, hadn't drawn blood from a Buddha. Although I did have to give Lama Yeshe an injection, series of penicillin injections, which was how I met him actually, at the 3rd course. And so there's positive drawing blood and there's negative drawing blood. And I hadn't created a schism in the Sangha community, so I was, again, not disqualified. So I'm thinking, well, so I've got this 2nd, 3rd, and 4th richnesses, the main benefit of each being that you can get ordained. Maybe I should get ordained to take advantage of this kind of rare opportunity. So that was a bit of a shocking thought, to become a monk. But anyway, I sat with it. And then one day when I was working on these teachings, there was a knock at the door. So we lived at this house. We lived in this house. There were the Westerners that were there. There was Marie, Yeshikado, and me, and an American couple, Dick and Meredith. They'd met at the 4th course. Dick had been at the 3rd course as well. He was one of the few people that stayed on, and he became the facilities manager at Kopan, fixing things up and organising the facility. So he was at Laudo, and he met this American woman, Meredith, at the 4th course, and they got together. And they went up to Laudo. Then there was Gareth Sparham, who soon after he went to Dharamsala and studied at the dialectic school. He's published quite a few books. You may know the name, Gareth Sparham. He actually he translated Kunu Lama's book that Wisdom published on the precious lamp and praise of bodhicitta. Vast as the heavens, deep as the sea. He translated that. They published Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on the 50 verses of Guru devotion called The Fulfillment of All Hopes. And he's translated Tibetan Dhammapada, which we published in Delhi in 83. And so he's translated and published a bunch of stuff. He was up there. And he was teaching English to the monks, the Kopan monks. So in those days, the 30 or so Kopan monks, and it grew fairly quickly after that, but in the summer, they would go up to Laudo, which is where most of them came from, that area. And in the winter, when it was too cold and difficult to stay up there to get food and stuff, they went down to Kopan. So that happened in 74, I think, 73, 74. And then by that time, by 75, I think they just stayed at Kopan year round. It was too difficult to go up and down. There were too many, and it was difficult to get food up there for that many monks and so on. But at that time, they went up and down. So Gareth taught English to the monks. And there was a nun, Jamyang Wongmo. She was called Jampachurki then. She translated, she published, she wrote, edited, she wrote, authored the book, The Laudo Lama, which Wisdom published, the life of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's past life and his present life, and the lives of the Sherpas. So she lives in Bodhgaya now. She's been a nun for well over 50 years. She's editing Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings, which we're hoping to publish next year, his commentary on the Heruka Body Mandala. She's been working on that very extensive teaching for some years now. But she spent most of her time in the last 50 years in Nepal, living up in the Solakhumbu area, doing retreat. And she's also an artist. She does beautiful paintings. So we were the sixth, and then she went up and she got out of the house fairly quickly that we were staying at, which is about a 15-minute walk. So Laudo Monastery's here and the house is down here. It's called Ganupa, and it belonged to Rinpoche or his family. So we stayed there and we'd go up and down every day. So during the day, the others were up there. Champa was in retreat in the Charok cave. And so during the day, I was by myself in the house editing these teachings. And there was a knock at the door, and there was this Tibetan guy standing there, and he had a whole lot of stuff in his arms. And there was a set of robes, and there was a cape, a monk's cape. This one, in fact, which I still cheekily use sometimes. I took it to Italy and I had this acrylic lining put in. Otherwise it was quite thin, called a dakam. And I had this acrylic lining put in so it'd make it warmer. I haven't used it much. It has all these kind of moth holes in it. It lived in our basement here for a long time. But there was also a set of robes and some other things, a Buddha statue, and anyway, different things. And he was trying to sell it for 1,000 rupees. So this time I was thinking about becoming a monk. And so I figured, well, I could buy these things. And if I don't become a monk, I'm sure I can sell the robes back in Kathmandu for a profit. So why not? So I bought these things. So then when the others came back that evening to the house, I told Marie, I said, guess what I bought today? She was like, what? What do you buy around here? And I said, I bought some robes. So she was kind of shocked. And then I said, well, it doesn't mean I'm going to become a monk, I just, but, I'm thinking about taking advantage of the second, third, and fourth richness. So maybe you should think about it too. So the short story is that we went back to Kathmandu from Laudo at the end of the summer, and we did the 5th course. So another thing that I realized while I was, putting these teachings from the 3rd and 4th course together, how much we missed by just taking notes. That Rinpoche, he taught for hours every day for a month, and the notes didn't quite do justice to everything he said. So we didn't have electricity at Kopan at that time, and there were no tape recorders. So I determined to sit down in front of the throne for the 5th course and take down every word, as best I could, rather than just notes, sort of transcribe what he was saying. And in those days, Rinpoche spoke relatively slower than he did in later years, and he often repeated himself. So that made it a little easier. So I did that at the 5th course, sat down, I took down every word he said, as best I could. I made up abbreviations as I went, and I had this illegible doctor's writing. And we learned to take notes fast in the medical school. And by the end, there's a lot of stuff I couldn't read. But miraculously, Marie Yeshikoto, she could read everything I wrote. So, and I didn't type, men didn't type. I mean, in America, all boys learned to type in high school, girls and boys. In Australia, we didn't have that. Nobody learned to type, boys or girls, as far as I know. I went to a boys' school, but we didn't learn to type. It was kind of something women did. And I really regret that this time. I've done so much typing very badly. But anyway, she typed up all my notes, and then I edited them and put them together. And then we did Meditation Course Notes, Volume 2. So these are the notes, students' notes from 2 courses. This is the transcript from 1 course. So you can see how much we missed. But so, I mean, these are unbelievable teachings. And then we did the same for the 6th course. We did have electricity by then. In fact, Venerable Roger had shown up at the 6th course, and he was an electrician, so he kind of wired Kopan. Roger Kunsan, Lama Zopa's assistant. But the electricity was very unreliable, so we also had to use Indian batteries. They were pretty unreliable. They ran out very quickly. So when they run out, you have to leave them in the sun. You get a bit more. They get a bit more energy, and you use them again. So sometimes when you play back the tapes, it sounds like the Chipmunks, because it's recorded at a slow speed, but when you play it at a normal speed, it's like. So, but with transcribing machines these days, you can slow them down. So we managed to record everything Rinpoche has said since the 5th course. And those transcripts for all those courses, there have been 52, I think Rinpoche has taught maybe at 50 of them. So his teachings are all, about 30 of the courses are online now. And we're in the process of getting the others lightly edited and posted online. It takes time. So when we got back to Kopan, I asked Lama Yeshe if I could get ordained. And when he'd finished laughing, he said, well, we'll think about it. And then Marie decided to get ordained, and there were a bunch of people came for the 5th course from Dharamsala. Some of them wanted to get ordained. So in December, on December the 15th, 1973, Lama Yeshe called the 10 of us who were at Kopan who wanted to get ordained to his room, and he started the IMI, the International Mahayana Institute. That's when he said we need an organization for the monks and nuns. So that's when it started. And that in 5 days is the 50th anniversary of that. So I'm supposed to be talking to people at Nalanda Monastery about the beginnings of the IMI. Kind of a Zoom thing. So in January 74, a couple of weeks after this meeting we had with Lama Yeshe when he founded the Sangha, FPMT Sangha organization, which was a couple of years before he founded the FPMT itself, actually. So His Holiness was giving a Kala Chakra initiation in January 74. So everybody from Kopan pretty much went down there for that anyway. And then at the end of that the 10 of us got ordained by His Holiness Ling Rinpoche. So it was kind of a special time. It was all part of trying to make the perfect human rebirth meaningful. Okay, so let's go on to verse 2, shall we? So verse 2 says, what's the time? To apply yourself with body, speech, and mind to the sacred teachings, people of Tingri, is the best thing you can do. Apply yourself with body, speech, and mind to the sacred teachings. So applying ourselves to the teachings means, well, you know, the advice that Anna Ann gave me, you know, give yourself to the Dharma and take refuge, take precepts, and study and meditate. So with body, speech, and mind. So first thing with body, speech, and mind is another list of 10. There's to avoid the 10 non-virtuous actions, or to create the 10 virtuous actions, which are the opposite of the non-virtuous actions, 10 non-virtuous actions. So, you know, there are 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. So, you know, of course, there are countless negative actions, non-virtuous actions that we can do. But these 10 are the common ones that are easy to recognize and to avoid. So the 3 non-virtuous actions of body are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So when we talk about the creating negative karma, remember we talked last time, you know, there's the to create a complete negative karma of killing, for example, there has to be the motivation, which can be anger or hatred or jealousy or even attachment. You know, we can kill. Of course, we're talking about killing a human. We're talking about killing animals for food and so on. It's can definitely come from attachment, but the most serious action of killing is killing a human being. So that can be, you know, so the motivation can be hatred. So there's the action, there's the motivation, there's the object, another human being to be killed. There's the action of doing it directly or indirectly, and then there's the completion of the act where the other being dies before you do. We talked about that last week. So you know, I pointed to Geshe Zopa's, there are 5 volumes of Geshe Zopa's commentary on the Lamrim Chenmo. So volume 2 has a very extensive section on karma, where it goes into great detail of these details of these non-virtuous actions. So I'm not going to do that now. But but generally, for these actions to be a complete action, complete negative action, there has to be these 4 branches present. So killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct are the 3 non-virtuous actions of the body. So the virtuous actions of the body are the opposite of those, just abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. And then we have the vows. So lay vows, 5 lay vows include those. Not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual misconduct. So, that's, what Padampa Sangye says, apply yourselves with body, speech, and mind. So applying yourself with body is not creating those, particularly those 3 negative actions of body. Then the negative actions of speech are lying. So we have vow against that in the lay vows. Lying, speaking harshly, abusing others verbally, slandering others, especially causing division, gossiping, and then gossiping. The 4th one is gossiping. So, there can be overlap with gossip. We can slander, we can lie. But generally, gossiping is just considered negative action because it's such a complete waste of time. With perfect human rebirth, we could be doing so much more. We could be generating bodhicitta instead of yammering about this or that sort of meaninglessly. So 4 non-virtuous actions to avoid are lying, harsh speech, slander, and gossiping. And then the 3 of mind are, it's called covetousness, just basically greed, just wanting more, wanting better, and just a complete dissatisfaction with things or people. Sometimes called window shopping. Then the second non-virtuous action of mind is ill will. Just that sort of a branch of anger, just resentment or plotting revenge or retribution. We hear a bit about these days. That sort of negative mind. And the third non-virtuous action of mind is wrong views, thinking there's no past and future lives. The 4 noble truths are nonsense. There's no such thing as refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Just completely wrong views. So basically they reflect the 3 poisons, what the Buddha called 3 poisons: ignorance, attachment, and aversion. Just so the mental aspects of those 3 poisons. So those are the 10 non-virtuous actions that are singled out, and it's another list. I'm sure you're all familiar with those by now anyway. It's such a basic teaching, but we should remember them. And why we should avoid them is, as he says, it's the best thing we can do is to apply ourselves in body, speech, and mind, to use our body, our speech, and our mind in a positive way. So, a positive way to use our body is by helping others in whichever way they need help. we can use it in a Dharma way, doing prostrations or making holy objects by making satsas or painting tankas. I mean, there are a lot of physical practices that we can do, as well as avoiding those non-virtuous actions. With speech, we can explain Dharma to people. We can recite mantras. We can do prayers. We can, or even on a more mundane level, we can help, console people who are suffering, and so many things, positive things we can do with our speech. With our mind, we should meditate, think about the teachings, meditate on them, and try and develop concentration. We can try to entertain realizations of the teachings. So that's basically the second verse. So Wendy told me I had to get to at least the third verse, so I'm under pressure here. Well, not to make any comparison at all, because there's no similarity, but often, even in Kurukulla, I think Lama Zopa Rinpoche would come and would be advertising he's giving a teaching on, the jewel rosary of the Bodhisattva. Sometimes he wouldn't even mention the name of the text, let alone teach on it. So, so that's the school I come from. But I can't even say a pale reflection, no reflection at all. So the third one is give your very life, heart, and soul to the three jewels, people of Tingri, and their blessings cannot but arise. So I'm not sure what the soul is, because Buddhism doesn't teach a soul, but that's how these people have translated it. One of the very first things I came across after doing my first course at Nepal, there are very few books around, published books on Tibetan Buddhism, and those that were around were often done by people who weren't practitioners and who are more scholarly, and they didn't necessarily work with teachers, with lamas, so they weren't particularly authentic, the books that were around. But one of the things that I was given was, something that was kind of like on paper like this, it was done from a duplicating machine. The common ones were called Gestetners. I don't know if anyone knows Gestetner, the German duplicating machine. There were ones, so you had to type on a stencil, a wax stencil. You took the ribbon out of the typewriter, and the keys, and you wound this wax stencil that had a band on top with holes in it with which you connected it to the printing drum of this machine, and you typed on the wax and it cut the wax, and then when you ran it through the machine, the ink would seep through the cut wax onto the paper. So you could crank it by hand, which was kind of slow, but later on they made electric ones, so they could churn them out more quickly. So we finished up buying one of these electric ones, and we had it in a place, Sister Max's house in Kathmandu, because we didn't have electricity at Kopan. But when we got more reliable electricity at Kopan, then we brought it up there, We had a room, and then the young monks would write with a stylus by hand into Tibetan, so then they could print their own texts, Tibetan texts. So we had quite an operation up there. But I don't know if you can see that the quality of the typing is I mean, the printing is, it's ink seeping through cut wax. I mean, considering what it is, it's pretty good. And if you made a typo, if you made a mistake, then you had to paint over the mistake with nail polish and then wait for it to harden and then hit it again in the right spot. And that become even more blurry. So, you know, we've come a long way since then. So why am I saying this? I forget. So give your very life, heart, and soul to the three jewels. So the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Rinpoche never liked the translation, the three jewels, even though it's so common, triple gem. He would say the three precious sublimes, which doesn't really make sense in English, actually. But three rare precious sublimes, Konchog Sum in Tibetan. Kon means like jewel, like precious. So that's where the gem or the jewels, three jewels comes from. Konchog, chog means rare or sublime. Konchog Sum, Sum means three. So there's three precious sublimes. So we never managed to edit that into smooth English. But anyway, that was, so Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, you know, and that's the first thing we do once you decide you want to adopt Buddhism as your path, then the first thing to do is take refuge. And taking refuge is what makes you a Buddhist. Tibetan word is Nangpa, which is translated as an inner being, or an insider. So some people think it means an inner being means the Buddhism emphasizes the mind. So it means you sort of go inside and you're more concerned with your inner life than the outer life. But what I think it means, because the opposite of the non-Buddhist is a chilopa, means an outsider. So that doesn't necessarily mean someone who's materialistic and only concerned with accumulating possessions. It means someone who doesn't accept the four marks or the four seals of Buddhism, that, you know, life is suffering, conditioned existence is suffering, that all conditioned things are impermanent, that all things are selfless or, you know, and not inherently existent, and that nirvana or liberation is true peace. These are the four fundamental tenets of Buddhism. So you become a Buddhist by taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. You know, the Buddha, his teachings, and the community, and accepting these four seals as being true. So that's what really means. And then the obligation of of taking refuge is to follow karma, to stop creating negative actions and to purify the negative actions that have already been created since, each of us since beginning of this time, and to create positive actions. And, as I keep saying, the main way to do that is to take precepts, to take vows not to do certain actions, which is the essence of the practice of Buddhist conduct or morality, discipline. So in Tibetan Buddhism also, the devotion to the guru is extremely emphasized, and in fact, it's Lama Tsongkhapa calls it the root of the path. So when we look at the four outlines of the Lam Rim, the preeminent qualities of the founder, mainly Atisha, and the preeminent qualities of the teaching itself, and third one, how to listen and how to teach the Dharma, and then fourth one, how to actually follow the path to enlightenment. So that's divided into guru devotion, becoming devoted to the guru, and then what to do when you're devoted. So then the exhortation to extract the essence from the perfect human rebirth, and then how to extract the essence of perfect human rebirth. And that's divided into these three, what's often called the three scopes. Again, Rinpoche didn't like the word scope. He would call it the path of the lower capable being, the path of the middle capable being, and the path of the great capable being, which again isn't the perfect English that we'd like, but actually does explain the essence of what these three levels means. So the path of the lower capable being, the practitioner of least capability, we can say, and so these are basically the three levels of positive motivation, right? So if we do things, so the fourth verse says, forget your goals for this life. Concentrate instead on lives to come. People of Tingri, that is the highest goal. So forget about your goals for this life. Concentrate instead on lives to come. People of Tingri, that is the highest goal. So we have these three levels of motivation that I mentioned before when we were talking about perfect human rebirth. That there are temporal goals and ultimate goals. So the temporal goal is not to be reborn in the lower realms. It's impossible to practice Dharma in the hell, hungry ghost, or animal realms. So the practitioner of least capability is that person who says, at all costs, I don't want to be reborn in the lower realms, so I must practice, in such a way that that won't happen, and that I'll get an upper rebirth. So by doing things with the motivation to receive better future lives, it is the lowest level of positive motivation. The practitioner of intermediate capacity, or the middle capable being, the person who has intermediate capability, is the person who says, well, I'm born in the upper realms this time. There's still a lot of suffering. I'm going to die, and there's no guarantee I won't be reborn in the lower realms. So I have to get myself out of cyclic existence altogether. So that person sets their sight on nirvana, or liberation, and that can be attained through practicing the 3 higher trainings: conduct, concentration, wisdom, realizing emptiness, purifying all karma, and never again being reborn in cyclic existence. So I mentioned that before. And then the highest goal, the path of the great capable being, the person with the greatest capacity, is the one who says, well, seeking my own freedom from suffering and my own everlasting blissful happiness is kind of selfish, because it's like, I'm trampling over all these other sentient beings who've helped me since beginningless time. And I'm just going off and freeing myself and leaving them to their suffering. So that's not particularly noble. And what will be better if I were to be able to help others, and to help them not just in simple ways, but in the highest possible way, which is by leading them to enlightenment. And the only way I can do that is to reach enlightenment myself. So that is my goal, to reach enlightenment in order to be able to, not for myself, but in order to be able to enlighten all sentient beings. So that's the actual meaning of forgetting your goals of this life, concentrate instead on lives to come, to get better future rebirths, liberation, and enlightenment. That's the highest goal. And with that, we've done 4. There's 96 to go. Actually, I thought I was going to get 6 weeks, but Geshe-la decided he's going to start teaching as soon as he gets back. So we have 2 more sessions, one more in December and one in January, and then Venerable Ravina's coming. So let's see what we can do in the next couple of weeks. And with that, thank you very much. So we'll do the concluding prayers, but just before that, we just think that we generated bodhicitta at the beginning. We've been talking about the Dharma teachings of Padampa Sangye and Lama Tsongkhapa and Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So we've definitely created a lot of merit. So we should dedicate that merit before it's destroyed by anger or wrong views. So think, because of this merit, may I quickly reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thanks. Giving mandala offering. Ji perki juxing me tok tram re rab ling ji ni de gen pa de sangi jing du ming te o agi brokon nam da jing la chur pa shu de tun ma me ku tsai rab jin ching nam ka trin le chok chur gi pa dang lo sang ten pe dren me sa sum gi dro he mun sel tak tu ne gyur chig edam guru ratna mandala kam nirya tayani. Short, long life prayer for His Holiness. In that snow-mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Savior of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion, to the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. And the short, long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche will change the last words to please, please return quickly. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majjhina's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please return swiftly. Prayer of dedication at the bottom of the page. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha's state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious Supreme Bodhi Mind, may I where unborn arise and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Migmed Sewe Ter Chen Chen Rezig Dream Me Kenpe Wangpo Jampo Yang Dupa Malu Dom Ze Sangwe Da Gangchen Kepe Tsugen Songkapa Lo Sandrape Jabla Solwa De. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Nick.
Mark.
Everybody,
Thank you all.
see you next week.